All right, today we're going to do something a little different. We're going to shrink ourselves down, way down, and take a tour of one of the most complex, bustling environments you can possibly imagine, the eukaryotic cell. You think big cities are impressive? The real action is happening inside a metropolis so tiny that trillions of them fit inside you at this very moment.
You know, this quote really just nails it. A cell isn't just some blob of goo. It's a highly organized, living thing where every single piece, every part, has a specific job to do. So let's dive in and see how it all works. So here's our game plan for the tour. We're going to start at the city limits, kind of see the border security. Then we'll compare different city layouts, pop into the central command center, check out the industrial factories and the postal service, and finally take a look at the power plants and the waste management that keeps this whole metropolis running.
All right. First things first, before we go inside, we need to understand what this city is even built on. The simple truth is, every living thing, from the smallest bacterium to the largest whale, and of course us, is made of cells. They're the fundamental building blocks of all life.
Okay, so every city needs borders, right? Some security at the gate that decides what gets in and what stays out. For the cell, that's the plasma membrane. And it's not a stiff, rigid wall at all. Scientists call it the fluid mosaic model. The best way to picture it is like a bubbly, oily sea, and floating in that sea are all these different proteins, kind of like icebergs. This fluid, flexible structure is what lets it control everything that comes and goes, keeping the inside environment just right.
But here's the thing, not all cellular cities are built the same way. In the world of the living, there are really two main blueprints. You've got your simpler, kind of open-plan cities called prokaryotic cells. Think bacteria. And then you have the complex, highly organized cities that we're made of, the eukaryotic cells.
In this chart, it lays out the differences perfectly. Think of prokaryotes as simple villages. They're small, their DNA just kind of floats around in the middle, and they don't have any specialized buildings, what we call organelles. But eukaryotes, that's the metropolis. They're much bigger, their DNA is safely tucked away inside a proper command center, the nucleus, and they've got all these different organelles, each one a specialized district with a very specific job.
So let's head into the eukaryotic metropolis. Our first major stop is the biggest and, honestly, the most important district of them all, the nucleus. You can just think of it as City Hall. It's the central command, where all the big decisions are made and all the orders come from.
So what's inside City Hall? Well, it holds the city's most precious asset, the DNA. This is the master blueprint for absolutely everything the cell does, all neatly packed up into chromosomes. And this vital information is protected by a double membrane with little pores that act like guarded gates, controlling who and what gets in and out. And right in the middle of it all, you have the nucleolus, which is like a busy little factory that builds the parts for the cell's protein-making machines.
And you better believe that structure is absolutely critical. When that protective nuclear envelope is faulty, like in the rare genetic condition progeria, the results are just devastating. A tiny defect in the structure of City Hall causes the whole system to break down, leading to rapid, premature aging. It's a stark reminder of just how important this one organelle is.
Okay, so we've left City Hall. Now let's head over to the industrial heart of the cell. This is where the blueprints we just saw get turned into actual products and workers that keep this whole city running. Welcome to the Endoplasmic Reticulum, or the ER for short. It's this huge network of membranes that spreads out right from the nucleus. And there are two different neighborhoods here. You've got the rough ER, which looks bumpy because it's covered in these little things called ribosomes. This is the main assembly line for making proteins. Then you've got the smooth ER, which, you guessed it, is smooth. It's more of a specialized factory for making lipids and for detoxifying poisons. Now let's follow a protein on its journey. It gets built on the assembly line of the rough ER. From there, it gets shipped over to the Golgi Apparatus, which is basically the city's post office. At the post office, the protein gets sorted, maybe modified a bit, and then packaged up into a little bubble called a vesicle. Think of it like a delivery truck, which then drives to the city border, the plasma membrane, to drop off its package to the outside world. It's an incredibly slick operation.
You know, a city can't run without power, and it will grind to a halt pretty fast if it gets buried in its own garbage. So next up, we're visiting the organelles that handle these absolutely essential city services.
Okay, if there's one thing everyone remembers from high school biology, it's this. The mitochondrion is the powerhouse of the cell, and it's famous for a reason. It's true. These are the power plants that take the food we eat and turn it into usable energy, a molecule called ATP, that fuels just about everything the cell does. And the city's energy needs are huge.
We're not talking about 1 or 2 power plants here. Get this, a typical cell can have around 2,000 mitochondria. In fact, they can take up a fifth of the entire cell's volume. That just goes to show how much energy it takes to keep this microscopic metropolis humming.
All right, what about the trash? Well, let me introduce you to the lysosomes. These are the city sanitation crew and recycling department all rolled into one. They're basically little sacs filled with powerful digestive enzymes. Their job is to track down and break down anything that needs to be cleared out. Old, broken organelles, invading bacteria, you name it. They keep the city clean and tidy.
So what happens when the garbage collectors go on strike? Well, it's not pretty. Take a condition like gout. Sharp crystals build up inside the cell, and they can actually puncture the lysosomes. This releases all those corrosive enzymes out into the cell, causing massive inflammation and pain. It's a pretty intense example of how, when one tiny system fails, the whole city suffers.
So we've seen City Hall, the factories, the power plants, the cleanup crew. We've really hit all the major spots. Now it's time to zoom out a bit and see how this all works together as one perfectly balanced living system.
And here's the most important thing to remember. None of these organelles works alone. It's a totally interconnected system. The nucleus sends out the blueprints to the ER builds the proteins that need energy from the mitochondria to work, and when those parts get old, the lysosomes come along and recycle them. It's this beautiful, dynamic dance where every part relies on every other part to maintain life.
So you might be wondering, how on earth do scientists even study one tiny part of this complicated city? Well, they use something called marker enzymes. Think of it like a city directory. Each district, each organelle, produces unique enzymes that act like a street sign. So if a scientist finds ATP synthase, they know, aha, I'm in the mitochondria. This is so important for studying diseases, because if one of those enzymes is missing, they know exactly which part of the city has a problem.
And that, believe it or not, wraps up our tour. We've seen just how incredible, how organized, and how efficient this tiny city really is. So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. If each of the 30 trillion or so cells inside your body is its own bustling metropolis, what does that make you? A universe? A galaxy of interconnected worlds? It's pretty amazing to think about.